Hello, everyone, and welcome to a surprise edition of Wine, Women, and Words. Michelle is taking a wonderful weekend away with her kids, and so I decided while Michelle's away, the Women's National Book Association will play. And we have two of my fellow board members and friends from the Women's National Book Association. We've got Ezina. You guys remember her. She was on the show before. And then we have Natalie as well. And Natalie is the president, and Ezina is director of communications. She and I work a lot together because I handle the social media for Women's National Book Association. So how are you ladies doing tonight?
Doing great.
Yeah, enjoying fall.
Yeah, so we need to clarify that it's California fall, not other parts of the country fall. For us, fall is like mid-70s, and we're like, yes, we can wear long T-shirts now. Yeah. Long pants without sweating to death.
I'm wearing my cardigan at home with socks. It's not that cold, but still.
We can actually break out the socks and not look like complete freaks.
Exactly.
And wear 3/4 length tops with sleeves.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, I'm not quite long sleeves, but I'm kind of in between, which is perfect for California fall.
I'm excited. I actually pull out my boots, and I'm like, I know that it's a little too warm for boots, but I could still wear them, and I can get away with wearing them. Yeah, we'll do it. And I mean, it just has to drop down to like 70, 75 when we pull out the sweaters for fashion sense, not for any other reason.
Yeah. Well, you're in Orange County, so you can get away with wearing flip-flops and a sweatshirt.
I'm actually in South LA County.
Oh, okay.
I live in South LA County, so yeah, not quite, but I totally know what you mean, because that's my husband's go-to winter wardrobe is sweatshirt, shorts, and flip-flops, and I see that face, Ezina. That fashion sense.
Nothing.
Ezina's our fashion queen.
I can't change the man's fashion. I mean, when I met him, he's going to probably kill me for saying this on the air, but when I first met him, he was wearing khaki pants and sneakers.
That worked.
No, it is awful. And I was like, oh no, if we're going to go out together, that needs to go. There's not much you can change in a partner, but there are certain standards I've got to have for the clothes. I mean, I'm not that picky, but khakis and sneakers, no.
Oh my God.
I understand. I completely embrace my husband's former wardrobe and upgrading it to something unrecognizable to him. A lot of fun.
I've got a. You guys hear that? That sound issue?
There's a gremlin.
There you go.
Is it? All right, who's the gremlin coming from?
Me?
Nope, not you.
Me?
Okay, now you're talking. Now you're okay. So this is the fun part of the live portion of the show. So what were you saying again about your husband's wardrobe?
Oh, no, just to replace it all. Because it was unacceptable.
Now, did you just do it all at once and he came home and there was just a whole new wardrobe, or did you do it piece by piece so that he didn't notice?
Well, kind of happened. When we first started dating, within the first 2 weeks of dating, I removed half of his wardrobe. And since we've been together, 10 years now, like I've just been slowly taking away all of the favorite, sports team shirts. So right now we're at 100% replacement, which feels amazing.
Oh, that's nice.
He looks human again.
Not like a grown-up college kid? What? My husband's going to be a perpetual college kid in his wardrobe. I mean, unless we go out somewhere nice, and at that point, if we go out anywhere, he's just given up. He's like, honey, what do you want me to wear?
Exactly.
Lay out my clothes. That's just going to be the happiest part, easiest thing.
Yeah, that worked. That too. Okay. Except today, I have to say, this is off topic. I know we need to get off the husbands. But today, my husband actually put on an outfit, and he's like, how does this look? And I was like, oh my God, you look great. Like, that was awesome.
I love it when they're well trained.
Yes.
And we're not talking about about changing our men. We're just talking about, improving. Good partners, yeah. Yes, and long pants. And good partners bring out the awesomeness of the other partner, and we're just helping bring out that awesomeness in them. That's all we're trying to do.
Exactly.
So, ladies, what are we drinking tonight? We'll start with you, Natalie.
So I'm not a wine drinker. It gives me a hangover. I drink Bombay Sapphire gin and soda, like soda water. And then I grew pomegranates in my backyard. So I juice them and I put a little splash of pomegranate juice in it. It's really good.
Ooh, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
And Ezina, how about you?
I'm so lame, so lame, so lame. I am drinking Gatorade.
Just plain Gatorade?
Gatorade fierce orange tropical fruit. I have never had it before tonight, and it tastes all right. So I'm the lame one with the big. I mean, it has a big G-Force logo on it, so I thought I needed that because I'm going to be staying up late tonight. So I'm on the Gatorade kick for this evening.
And it works. And Gatorade totally works. I totally go for that. We drink Gatorade periodically here. And we will not shame you. So there always has to be one sober, logical one in the group. So we're going to let you be the logical one between the three of us.
Awesome.
Yeah. By the end of the night, I'm going to be slurring. I'm just joking. I'm kidding. I won't be.
That's okay. There's no shame. I've had those episodes.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Gretchen helped with that episode. That was the last time.
She's always fun to drink with.
Oh, she is. We had ended up with a 2-hour episode when she was on because we just kept talking and recording.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I was quite gone by the end of that episode. But tonight I am going to control myself because I do have work to do after this too. But I am drinking a red blend, and it's quite good. So if you guys want to drink wine like me, it's okay if you don't want to. We are equal opportunity alcoholics. But if you want to get into wine, we do have our sponsor, Wink. Go to trywink.com/www podcast, and you can get $22 off your first order of wine.
Awesome.
Yes. And it's something cool to try out. I love Wink. It's so much fun. But we are here to talk primarily about WNBA. So I haven't heard either of your stories about how you guys got involved and why you got involved.
Right. So I'll start. So I got involved years ago. I used to intern for a literary PR firm in Los Angeles, and one of the owners of the firms was I think the vice president of WNBA. And I thought the same thing that everybody else thinks, like, oh, you're the vice president of Women's Basketball Association. That's weird. Super tiny. And I was like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. And then she clarified what it meant, Women's National Book Association. And, she introduced me to it, and I became a member. And then I just kind of fell off the radar. It wasn't something that I was wanting to continue with. And then once Rochelle took presidency, things really got a lot more interesting with WNBA, especially the Los Angeles chapter. And I got more involved in literature and publishing. And, the more I got involved with literature and publishing, the more I saw the importance of being a part of WNBA. And so I joined again, and it's been a really fun time, especially with you ladies. But yeah, so that's how I got started.
And you were a member for how long before you became president?
Not that long, just one, what's it called? Year.
Okay.
And that was before I re-signed. So I was a member for a year, and then I took a hiatus because I had so many other things going on. And then when I signed up again, that's when I was actually going to fill in a VP role, and last minute, the president didn't want to take on the responsibility, which is understandable. And so Rochelle asked me to take it on just because we had worked together before, and I knew her from like, you know, previous WNBA events. And I said yes. Yeah.
I'm so glad you did.
Yeah. So, Ezina, your turn.
I got started in WNBA last year. I attended an event at the Santa Monica. There was a. I'm trying to think of the house. Anyway, there was
Annenberg House.
Pardon?
The Annenberg House.
Thank you. I had a brain freeze there.
Where we had the holiday party?
No. The Annenberg House is part of USC. So it's the USC Annenberg House, right on Santa Monica Beach. It's beautiful. People have like weddings there and stuff, but they have a literary person there continuously to just, you know, have events that are, you know, accessible to the public, that, you know, kind of cover different ranges of topics. But Sakaya, she was their in-house event coordinator. And she did a really amazing event about like book marketing and publishing and things like that. And that's actually where I met Ezina, because myself and Rochelle were both on the panel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Best night of my life, Ezina.
Mine too. Like, it was so great. It was a wonderful panel, and you know, like Natalie said, she was on the panel, Rochelle was on the panel, and a few other ladies, and it was quite inspiring. And you know, when you're a writer, you tend to be in a bubble, and you're kind of in your own, just, you know, cave. I call it my creative cave, and you're just kind of doing your thing. And when I attended this event and I saw all of these wonderful people who are also authors and writers, I wanted to find a way to get involved with an organization. And I met with Natalie like a few days after we met at the Annenberg, and you know, we talked about WNBA, and I joined and became a member. And then a few months after that, she asked me to join the board in the role of communications, and I agreed. And so now I've been involved on the board, as have you, I believe, since January. So, you know, we're headed into our 11 month as a team here.
Yeah.
WNBA. But, you know, I just really love the idea that it's a 100-year-old organization for women writers, and that the organization is about bringing women together and giving them resources to not only thrive as writers, but to thrive in their communities. And I just said, I want to play.
Yeah, it's been nearly a year since we've been all on the board together, which is crazy, because it's funny, you guys got asked to be on the board. I kind of pushed my way on in some ways.
Oh, no. I felt like I forced you. But you were already doing all of this stuff. So I feel like it just kind of like fell into place. You know what I mean? Like, you were doing it, and you're so good at like all of the social stuff and your podcast. It just was like a perfect fit. So I was like, you know what? Like, this woman has to come on board. Like, there was no question about it. So.
Yeah, because I remember when I got introduced to it, it was through, every year WNBA has a short story contest. Mm-hmm. And so much of my life, I have to say, goes back to Michelle going, hey, you should do this. Even when it comes to my writing career, Michelle was like, you need to be writing. Why aren't you writing? You need to do this. And she sent me a link to the short story contest for WNBA that she happened to see on like a Facebook ad or something. Mm-hmm. And she sent it to me. She's like, you need to write a short story. And I was like, okay, I'll write a short story.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, what's this organization? What's it about? And I started researching online, and then I was like, okay, well, where's my nearest chapter? And luckily there's one in Los Angeles, but we're all over the country. San Francisco, they do so much great stuff up there.
Right. New York.
Yeah, New York is impressive too. And I was like, well, I want to get involved. And I kind of hung out for that first year.
Mm-hmm.
I got to know Rochelle, got her on the podcast, really only went to a handful of events that first year. I did the literary tea, and then I did the writer's voice where I got to do a reading. And then I did the second literary tea, the holiday one, where I was like, okay, I need to be involved because I can never just be a part of a nonprofit, just be like, or any kind of organization, just be like, okay, I'm just going to attend events. It's
Right.
yeah, not the way I roll. My husband, when I'm like, oh, I heard about this organization, he's like, okay, so how long until you become a board member and just start working in there? And
Yeah.
I did that with the Orange County Paralegal Association, and then with the Book Association. It just, like you said, it was a natural fit with everything that I'm doing and what the association is doing, and what, it's a group that combines what I believe in too with promoting women in publishing, and not only just women in publishing, but minority voices, minority women in publishing, because there is that lack of representation in a lot of genres. I mean,
yeah, in what's interesting and amazing about the Women's National Book Association is that we've been, the association's been around for 100 years. And, the first 100 years was really a big push for, women to have a seat in publishing. And what a lot of people don't know at each chapter is that we have a national meeting every year to discuss the future of the entire organization, what chapters, are facing as far as like challenges and successes and things like that. And, we all agreed that going into the next century, the biggest push for Women's National Book Association is to not just push women, but to push women of color in publishing, because there's such a big gap of diversity in publishing, and it starts from the ground up. And I think we talked about it being part of the Los Angeles chapter, is that that's one of the most important things to our chapter, because Los Angeles is one of the most diverse cities in the United States, and that's what makes it so amazing and so beautiful to be from here. And so what we want to do is really represent that in our chapter, and just get the word out that, this is what our goals are. And, these are the things that we're trying to do for women in publishing. So whether you're just a reader and want to connect with amazing new authors, or whether you're a writer and are looking for reputable agents and publishers or people in the industry to connect you with, that's what WNBA is really here for, is to be that, guiding force for people, and specifically women and women of color who don't have that reference point. And I think a lot of people don't have that reference point. It's a scary business. It's like you write this whole thing if you're a writer, and then you're like, what do I do with it next? And there's so much information out there, and we're kind of like that established group that helps hone in what is reputable, what is not reputable. And then at the same time, we have fun. We have author events, literary teas, parties, readings for our members. I mean, and we're a tribe, like Ezina said, is, when you're a writer, you kind of like just stay in your little bubble. And when you join a group like this, you start having like a tribe to connect with. And it takes the loneliness, or the I guess I would say loneliness, out of being a writer. So
that's absolutely true. And I mean, yeah, Zena totally hit the nail on the head.
yeah.
She gets the gold star for the podcast tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
There is at Wine Women in Words. You get the gold star. But yeah, I mean, you hit on the head, because like when I'm writing and creating, I don't necessarily like to be with other people when I'm doing it. That's when I become a hermit. I like to consider myself an introverted extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where it's like, I love being out and around people. I love talking with other people, obviously, by doing this. But there also comes a point where sometimes I'm around people so much where it hurts to talk to other people, where I'm like, okay, I need to take some time and just be alone for
Right.
like 24 hours. That's all I need to just kind of recharge, because I just get so tired out. And when I'm creating, that's when I do the introvert stuff. I write best because when I'm by myself, because when I'm with around other people, I'm like a little kid. I'm like, what are you writing about? What's over there? What's going on with that? And, oh, what's that noise over there? I'm very much that way when I'm not by myself. But having that other stuff, that other stability has been so great. I mean, Ezina is like podcast mentor. It's her official title within the Wine Women and Words family.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever told you that. Michelle and I gave you that title.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
And like the amazing thing about this group is that, it's funny because you meet like people and you're just like, oh my God, these women that I meet are like powerhouses. Mm-hmm. And Ezina is like one of them. She's so humble and she's just like super, hush about what she does, but she's just like this amazing creator and does all this amazing stuff and like tons of philanthropy. Mm-hmm. And like, these are the women that you get to, call your tribe. And I think that's really important because, again, when you're a writer or you're a reader, you tend to be a little bit of like a recluse, like, you're just kind of like doing your thing, reading your book, writing your novel, whatever you're doing, and it gets a little lonely. But, behind like these creators are amazing stories of all these different women, and you get to actually meet these amazing stories. A lot of women that are part of the WNBA LA are actually writing memoirs because they have amazing stories to tell, which is so cool. And so it's really nice to be a part of that like collective creative tribe, because you kind of feed off of each other. Like you were saying earlier, it's like, oh, what are you doing? That's amazing. And, and everybody gets excited about everyone's work and everyone's so supportive. And I just think that a lot of times when you talk to this stuff with like friends and family, they don't understand because they're not readers and writers. It's like we talk about, Tolstoy, and they're like talking about like the Kardashians, and we're just like, ooh, like there's a big gap. And and if you tell someone, oh, what do you do for fun? And you tell them, I'm a writer, I like to write stories. They're like, what the hell are you doing that for? Like,
or where are you published? Well,
yeah, exactly.
Where can I get your work? It's like, well, right now it's on the computer.
Exactly.
Or a funny story, what happens to me is, and I think it's part of the Finding the Tribe with WNBA, because we sit down together at brunch or at a meeting and we're like, okay, so what's your project? What's going on? What are you writing? And when we come around other people who come to meetings, we're like, oh, are you a writer or you're a reader? Great. What books are you into? What are you writing? I want to hear all about it. Let's talk. Let's connect over writing. That we find this means of being able to connect.
Right.
But I go out into the real world, non-WNBA world, and I'll be at a party or something. And the funniest thing happens where I was at one party and someone was like, oh, I'm a writer and I'm in the publishing industry. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And she's like, so you're a writer too? And I was like, yeah, let me tell you what I do. And I've got this podcast and I've got this. And she was just like, okay, and just like gave me like this cold shoulder afterwards. And I'm like, oh, wow. I felt like this little kid at the playground who was really excited to play with a fellow kid, and they just didn't want to play. And my husband was like, not everybody is like WNBA, honey. Not everybody wants to play in the same sandbox. And it's like, oh, so it's nice having that like-minded group of people.
I always call those people the literati, right? Because they are so like, oh, I speak with perfect grammar and like I do this and I've published like New York Times bestselling authors and I'm like, I'm from the hood and I write about my experience from the hood and I'm totally okay with that. And I speak Spanglish sometimes and, I don't have perfect grammar and, the point of WNBA is that you have women around you who are creators, and creation doesn't mean creating something perfect. Creation means giving life to something that's important to you. And I think that's what everybody in WNBA is interested in. So there's no, pushback from other members if, what you do isn't something that they're interested in. Everybody there is interested in creation. And I think that's like what makes it so special, is that we're a group of women and we do what we do best, right? Create. That's what women do. and there's so many amazing women that are part of the organization that are doing great things, that like there is no pushback, or there is no, being stuck up when it comes to certain things. Because I do the same thing. Like I'll go to certain readings and I'll talk to people and I'm like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I start talking about all the things that like we're involved with and what's going on. And sometimes people are just like, she's not cool enough, or she's not literati enough. So that's when I know, like, okay, it's not the group for me. And what I like about us is we're so welcoming, and we're so like, we're so excited about what everyone is doing. So
exactly, especially Natalie here. She's another humble person working on amazing screenplays and books, and she has offers coming in from all over the place. And you wouldn't know it because she's just such a sweetheart. You would think she would be like too cool for school, to talk to everyone, but she's always out there going, oh hi, hey, we're having this event, we're doing this, come play with us. She's very welcoming, and I think that's really wonderful to have the president of a chapter who's not only so welcoming and wonderful, but who's also kicking ass behind. Oh, sorry, can I say ass?
Yes, you can say whatever.
It's the internet.
Who's kicking ass behind the scenes. She's not just a figurehead. She's an actual writer. And I think sometimes in some organizations I've seen, people did this, lifetimes ago, but they're not actively doing it. And what I love about our organization is that everybody is doing something. Everybody is writing something or reading something. So we're an active group that takes action. We're always actively planning events, not only events to just socialize like our teas, but also educational events. We're bringing up the next writers, the writers of the future, by empowering them with information that for so many years has been kind of hidden. Because people were afraid to share because they didn't understand that, there's room for everyone. There's room for every author. There's room for every book, because there's so many different ways that you can publish and get your work out there. I'm a big proponent for self-publishing, and I built my empire on that. But some people want to go to publishing houses, and that's okay. And some people want to just write their work and share it at one of our events where you get to read. There's something for everyone. And I love that part about it. If you just want to hang around with other people who want to talk about books, you can do that at our teas.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get down and dirty and, get your work out into the world, we have events to help you do that as well. And so I really, really love that we're such a well-rounded organization. And what we're seeing is, our organization has, a gamut of ages as well. We have, some of the founding members of the organization who've been around for 20 plus years. And then we have some people who have just graduated from college. So I think that's really wonderful, because you can have really dynamic conversations about writing and publishing and sharing your work when you have such a diverse group. And we want to become even more diverse by bringing more of the melting pot of LA into WNBA. And I think, we have fabulous leadership in Natalie. Like I said, she's doing incredible things. Our Vice President, Kibby's doing wonderful things. She's writing for, a law paper. She's, doing some independent things for other magazines. And then we have our dynamic host here who's writing about the history of women and all of these different fascinating timelines, of the past, and just shedding a light on the history of women of different ethnicities, really. And I think that's really important. So there are a lot of important stories being told and written about in our organization. And there's a lot of great women too that are just, beautiful souls that are willing and open to share.
And just having that group of women, even outside of the publishing and literary scene, in media, so much women together being portrayed together it's always backstabbing. Especially if you look at reality television. You put on an episode of Real Housewives, I don't care what city, Real Housewives Timbuktu, for all I care, and they're going to want to stab each other in the back every time they turn around. And you get this idea that women can't be friends. Women always have to be competitors. You get a group of women together and they're going to turn on the weakest one. And you don't see that in this group. And it's good to find a group in general that's going to help lift you up, whether it's a book association or a paralegal association or a food justice association. Just finding a group that'll help you reach your goals and cheer you on when you reach your goals. Because I feel like maybe it's a narcissist in me. I'm going to venture out and say, because I feel like my friends' achievements in a way are also my achievements, because I'm friends with them and they're prospering and they're happy. And if my friends are happy, I'm going to be happy too. And if I see a friend that's, 5 steps above me, I'm going to be like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? How can I follow their path? What can I see? What can I take from their path and apply it to my path and see, and use that to help build myself up too and learn from them. Ezina regularly gets emails from me going, so I'm thinking about doing this with my podcast. What are your thoughts on this? And we'll have like intense conversations on like the business tech side of doing the podcast stuff. Because you've got your great podcast, Guitar Goddess. How long has that been running for?
We started in 2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was like in the early dawn of podcasts.
Dark ages of podcasting. It was a thing.
Yeah.
So all their
podcasts.
Pardon?
I said Ezina's the OG of podcasts.
Totally. I will second that motion.
At the time, no one was really doing it. And so I thought it was cool. And so I started doing it. And now, there's millions of podcasts. And I'm like, all right, that was pretty cool.
Now it's a common thing. But now you're very established about. So I'll continue, and because I know you've got that experience. And I'm like, okay, I've got these questions. How can, what's going on? And you're so kind enough to answer every single one of my questions and give me the cold, hard truth of the matter, which I love. I hate when people just kind of like, well, maybe it's up to you. And you're like, no. This is what you should be doing. This is my advice. Take it or leave it. But this is what my advice, and this is what you should be doing. And that's what great friends do. And that's what you get in a lot of this.
Yeah, you have to. I think that it's important for women to come together and bring each other up. And, there was that time, I say, especially around the early 90s, where people were thinking, me, and there's not enough people would close down their databases and not share their information. And I think now that things have shifted, that people are starting to open up and realize, wait a minute, there's enough for everyone and I can share. So share everything, and then we all can be successful and happy. And I think that's what this organization is also doing. We're sharing all the resources. There are a ton of resources in this organization. And right now we're doing a little bit of restructuring, but there's so much information, and it's all going to be on our new website. So stay tuned for that. The WNBA website is being redone, and we're going to have incredible resources there for everyone, because when you become a member, you have the opportunity to not only share your work with our chapter, but all the other sister chapters. And I think that's the power of women working together as well. All of the women here, I have gone to Natalie and asked for advice. I've asked Diana advice. Diana and I are like two peas in a pod. We work together really closely together because communications and social media. So we're in constant contact, working on things, both for WNBA and privately, our own personal projects, and we share a lot. And Natalie as well. Natalie and I have had 2-hour phone conversations.
All had those 2-hour phone conversations. Like, we had a virtual meeting. It was like 2 hours.
It was.
Right?
By the end, I had to pee so bad.
It was so productive, and it was like
it really was.
And I think that's the best thing about our organization is after we hang out and we talk and we do these events and stuff, you feel like you've made a difference. It may be a very small difference, but it's some sort of difference. And I think what's nice about our organization is that we're not just there, to talk about books or to talk about business or anything like that. We're truly there to uplift each other and support each other, and really like everything, that's going on in our lives. I will take whatever you want to give me as far as like information, but at the end of the day, like when I can support someone in the organization, I definitely will. And I feel like that's the bulk of our organization, how they feel. And, it's a very accessible organization. You have organizations like this, like mastermind groups and stuff like that are charging like, thousands of dollars to be a part of it, where our organization, it's only like a $45 to $47 fee to sign up for the entire year. Mm-hmm. So what's nice about us is that we offer accessibility to pretty much everyone, and student prices are lower. And if you can't afford that, you can contact us directly. But at the end of the day, we're able to, really bring in everybody. And I think being inclusive is super important, and just supporting everyone is really important. And I think, Ezina, I mean, I've called her a couple of times, with just life questions in general, and she's been super helpful. And Diana, just like, social media questions in general. And so it's not just about books, and it's not just about, writing. It's about everything. And that's what's super cool about this is, you get a group of women that are there for support. You find your tribe, right? That's like the whole thing, is finding your tribe. And it's nice to have that with an established 100-year-old organization.
And we should maybe talk about some of the events that we've got coming up.
Yeah, so we have, let's see. Well, we just did, I'm sure some people know, but October is National Reading Group Month, and Ezina was our moderator for that. But we had amazing Gretchen Bonaducci, Robin, I think her name's Robin Lee, and another author. I mean, we just have like really dynamic conversations. And then our next event is our literary tea, and then our holiday party. And we're also doing we're doing NaNoWriMo, and we're doing it in different areas, which is nice. So I'll be in my hometown, which is Torrance, in Redondo Beach area. So I'm going to be doing write-ins once a week. And so we'll be there, hosting write-ins. We'll have all WNBA information there. I think Ezina is going to be doing one in Calabasas. So we're just going to be kind of spread out. And then at the end of NaNoWriMo, we're going to have an event called Learn How to Pitch. So it's basically going to teach everyone, once you're done with NaNoWriMo, you finish your novel, hopefully, first draft, but let's like figure out how to pitch your book, how to pitch your log line, how to pitch the characters. I'll tell you that I've been, since I'm in PR, I've been pitching my whole life. So it's a little easier for me. But I went to a pitch event, and through that pitch event, I got, I'm in talks with getting my screenplay optioned. And yeah, I'm so excited. So,
really, cheer you on for that, because we are so excited about that.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm like, dream come true, right? But the thing with that is it it's knowing how to pitch people on your work, who you are, what you bring to the table, your characters, and the longevity and the marketability of what you're doing. And so I think, most of us are just writers, and that's a completely separate part of your brain, but you have to learn how to do it. And so that's what this course is going to help with. So yeah, so that's what I'm really excited for. But we have a ton that are coming up, and we'll be sending out newsletters and information on our social media. But as long as people sign up for a newsletter or like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram, they can get all of that information.
And Ezina, what have you been up to? Give us an update of what projects you have going on that you can talk about.
Okay, well, I have 2 projects. Well, gosh, there's so many in the pipeline. Okay, I'll talk about 2. I'll talk about my book, Glambitious, which I'm very excited about.
I can't wait to read it.
Me too.
I have to get you girls copies. Business tips for women on networking in today's marketplace. So I'm very, very excited about Glambitious. And the reason I'm super excited about it is I haven't seen a book like this on the market, really, which talks about not only building your business, but building your tribe. It talks about all of that together. And I also briefly talk about Spielberg and just that kind of group of people, how they all came up together, being successful together, and how women need to learn from those types of examples of men who work together and they all rise to the top, and that there's plenty of room. I keep saying that over and over again. It's kind of like my stomping ground. There's plenty of room for all of us to shine.
Yes.
So I'm very excited about Glambitious. It was supposed to be out already, but we had a few delays. So it will be coming out early 2019. I'm also excited about a quick little novel that's going to be coming out about a trip that I just took to Cuba. I took a trip to Cuba in February, and I wrote a novel about it called Cuba Gringas, and it's about the women who went to Cuba and all of the adventurous things that we did over there. So I'm really excited to get that project out there, and I just really want to share Cuba with the world. Not only the beautiful colors and everything, but the beautiful culture and the beautiful subculture that we don't really see from a journalistic perspective. So I'm really excited about Cuba Gringas. I'm super excited about Glambitious, the book, and we have just finished casting for Glambitious, the movie. So very, very excited.
Really? Oh, how exciting.
Yes, so,
oh my gosh, you always have so many exciting things happening.
Can I just say that Ezina didn't just go to Cuba? She actually went there on a humanitarian project, and she brought the kids coloring books, literature. I mean, it was amazing, the stuff that she was doing. And I was so this is my friend. I'm so proud of her. So it wasn't just a trip. It was she was doing some work, and she was doing amazing things out there. So again, these are the type of people that are part of WNBA.
I remember we sat around at brunch, and she was telling us all about it, and I was just enthralled by it. And I just finished reading Next Year in Havana. Yes. Right after I just finished reading it, and then we got together for brunch, and she was telling us all about the trip. I kid you not, I came home to my husband. I was like, okay, Cuba's being added to our travel list. We are going to go. And he was like, why all of a sudden? And I'm like, okay, well, first I read this one book, and let me tell you about Ezina's trip and what she did and what went on. And I was like, all about Cuba with him. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna have to make that trip happen at some point. And he was like, okay, all right, I can do that.
We could do a group trip. We can go there. We can bring them books. We can read to them. We could share about our projects. We could help some people there write their books. We could go spend a couple days working on a farm. We could go and spend some days in the school. I mean, I'm so in love with Cuba. So anytime you want to go back, I'm happy to put together a group trip so we can all go there and share literature.
I love it. And I love that more stories are coming out about Cuba. I mean, I'm so excited about yours. I cannot wait to read that. I really can't. And then you have, I'm forgetting her name, who wrote next year in Havana, but she's got a second book coming out about a family who escaped from Cuba. And then there's also Veins of the Ocean, where you have somebody who was from Central America, one character, and another character who was from Cuba, and they were both pretty much refugees. And they're living in Florida and dealing with life in Florida, post the stuff going on in their lives. And so I'm just loving that those stories are coming out now about Cuba and Central America, and it's so timely, and there's such great stories.
Right. There's also a movie that just came out from a student filmmaker, and it won oh my god, the student Oscars twice.
Okay.
I just met the director producer, great guy, forget his name, but it's called Esta es tu Cuba, and it's an amazing indie movie, and it's about his dad's journey to the United States. So yeah, I mean, aside from like books as well, there's like a ton of like just really amazing stuff happening, about Latin American stories and coming from Latin American countries, which I'm really excited about. So.
Me too. Well, we've got a little time left, so I think it's time for us to play a game. The game that Ezina introduced me to, that Michelle and I just love, and it's called Past, Present, Future. Which, when I said that, I know Ezina was like, "Oh, excited about it." I finally get to ask the questions, and they're going to be literature related.
Okay.
Have you played this before, Natalie?
No.
Oh, we got a past, present, future virgin. Okay, so you have to tell me a past, present, or future category. We'll let Ezina go first, since she's played. This way you can get the idea of it, Natalie. Okay. So past, present, future, Ezina.
Past.
Okay, what author was most influential to you?
Florence Scovel Shinn.
Okay, interesting. I'm not that familiar with her work. The name sounds very familiar, though.
The Game of Life and How to Play It.
Okay.
Gosh, I have like all of her books here. So many amazing books, but her books are very inspirational. And her idea in life was that you can win at whatever you set your mind to. And there's really, all of her books were mindset books, but they were written in the 30s. And I'm like, who was writing about that stuff back then? I find that fascinating. That she was writing about mindset and goal setting and how birds of a feather flock together, and how, the company that you keep determines your future. And she talks a lot about how, the stories that you play over and over again in your mind become your reality. And like just the idea that a woman was so futuristic and scientific in her thoughts, and she would put together these little lectures, and she would lecture people, and she would quote unquote heal people. They would come to her and say they had financial trouble, and she would give them a mantra to say, and then they would come back and tell her of the wonderful things that happened to them. And I'll just say one thing. I know we're running out of time, but one thing she says in her book that I thought was hilarious, and she said, there's never been a wealthy person with pins in their cushion. And I'm like, what in the world does that mean?
Yeah.
And I had to look it up, and it was a saying on how, if you want to be successful, you have to be organized, and you have to, have systems for how you do things in life. And I was like, oh my gosh, this just makes so much sense. So anyway, my favorite.
Okay, and now present or future?
Present or future? I have to give it to Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex.
Well, I was gonna say, I was gonna say another category, which that might count for another one of the categories. I mean, since you've got it right there on your desk. So, present or future? Which category for that?
I would say this is present.
Okay, that's what you're reading right now?
I've read it already. And
okay.
What I love about it is that here's this woman of color who marries into the royal family and is just dousing them with all of the culture of London that's been kind of hidden under the rug. I mean, she's bringing everybody to the forefront. In her first book to be, recipes by Muslim women and,
Wow.
Afghani women and African women. I'm just like, okay, and bam, there you go. So,
I love her. I love Megan. Megan is so awesome.
yeah, so future. I feel like she's changing the future of not only the monarchy, but also just the social presence of people of color in the Commonwealth.
I love it. You see the changes coming. You got to roll with them.
Absolutely.
So we've covered your present and future. So Natalie, your turn. So pick a category: past, present, or future.
Past.
Okay. Okay. I came up with only one set of questions, so I'm sorry. They're not going to be original. Who is the author that most influenced you?
Sandra Cisneros.
Okay.
She was pretty much the only author whose books I read in school that I could relate to, like as far as family dynamic, color of skin, language. And she was the first author that made me actually feel like, my story could be told too, that my story was interesting, that my life was interesting. So.
Okay, so now pick a category: present or future.
Future.
Future. Okay. What is the one story that you want to write in the future that you just can't wait to get to? If you were willing to share.
So the one story I want to write is about how magical, and that I've actually written. So this is kind of like what I'm working on getting optioned, and hopefully it'll come out soon. But it's about how magical all families can be, no matter where you come from. And my story specifically takes place in East LA, in the hood, in the ghetto, with gangsters and all that stuff. And there's a lot of like magical realism. And so I want to be able to tell the magic behind growing up in the hood, because to be honest, dodging bullets is magic. And coming out, the other end, educated and with a degree after being held back by so many different circumstances, that's magical. And so I want people to be able to see that no matter where you come from, you can have magic within you.
Very cool. I love that. And so for the present category, what book are you currently reading now?
So I'm reading like 3. I'll let me admit that 2 are on audiobook.
That's okay. We embrace audiobooks here. We actually
I love audiobook. Is that, oh my God.
We had Julia Whalen on last July. She's narrated almost every audiobook there is. But I love them. They're so wonderful.
So I'm finishing up I'll tell you what I'm reading. I'm finishing up The Discovery of Witches, that whole trilogy. So yeah, I'm on the last book. And then I got sidetracked because we had that event with our authors. And so I bought their book on audiobook, and I kind of got like wrapped up in Robin's book because it's like so amazing. Yeah. So that's kind of like, so I'm switching between the 2.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, we are just about at our hour. So is there anything else that we want to add before we sign off?
Your past, present, and future.
Okay. All right. So do I get to ask myself the questions, or are you guys going to ask me?
Ask you past, present, or future?
Past.
Okay, go for it.
Okay.
Who inspired you the most?
Interestingly, I would say Shel Silverstein or Silverstein. He was the big influence. I had just about every one of his poems from Where the Sidewalk Ends memorized. In fact, I was part of a group called Forensics in high school, which is not what you actually think by the name of it. You actually go and you perform poetry and prose competitively at different schools.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was like this whole district thing, and that's what I did in high school. That was my sport, so to say. And for my poetry, my poem that I did first year, I did Emily Dickinson. I was told I should do that. but I didn't really connect with Emily Dickinson. But I connected with Shell, and I did Ickle Me, Pickle Me, Tickle Me Too, which is still one of my favorite poems. And then there is the book that he did, Lafazio, The Lion Who Shot Back, all about being comfortable in your own skin. And even though those are children's books, I still go back to that poetry time and time again, because that poetry still speaks to you no matter what age you're at.
Wonderful.
Nice.
So
Present or
Present?
Yes.
so present, I will choose present. Since I have the book right here, I just, technically for Wine, Women, and Words, we are reading Undiscovered Country. So I'm like Natalie, I read a ton of books at the same time because it's the only way I can finish them. So for Wine, Women, and Words, our book of the month is Undiscovered Country, which I have right here, which I don't know if you guys knew Eleanor Lesbian was a lesbian. Or Eleanor was a lesbian.
Eleanor Lesbian was a.
Yeah, I was ahead of myself. Yeah, Eleanor Roosevelt was a lesbian.
Absolutely.
And she had a relationship with Lorena Hicks, or Hickok. Yeah, Lorena Hickok, which they called Hick. And this is the historical fiction version of their relationship told from Lorena's point of view.
Oh, wow.
And it's so fascinating, and we're just loving every bit of it, especially the cover. The cover is gorgeous. So for those of you who are listening and not watching, you need to look up that cover or check out our social media, because I just went on like a photography spree when we were on vacation. So I'm reading that. And then I just finished yesterday the spell book of Katrina Van Tassel, which is the feminist retelling of Sleepy Hollow. We had Alyssa on last month, and I couldn't wait for the book, and I finally got it, and I devoured it. It's so good. And then I'm going to pick up tonight, again, The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. I'm going to finish reading this one because I put it down because I got sidetracked with the spell book. And then, if that isn't enough, I'm listening to Where the Crawdads Sing on audiobook. And it's a story about this little girl who basically gets abandoned by her family and grows up in the marsh by herself in South Carolina or North Carolina, one of the two. And it's a very touching book, very, very down, sensitive, feeling book. I have a feeling that by the end of this book, I'm going to be crying at my desk at work.
Aww.
So that's all that I'm reading right now.
I can't read those books. They're too emotional for me. I will stick to my magical realism and my witches and my spell books. I might have to borrow that book from you.
I love magical realism. That is one of my favorite genres too. But I also am finding myself having to study Southern Gothic. So
Ooh, that's good too. Love that.
Absolutely.
So I guess that leaves me with future.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll talk about the stuff that I'm working on right now. Besides what I'm trying to pitch Anita and look at getting, the avenues of getting that published. I know Ezina and I have had conversations on this. The ones that I'm working on, the future ones, though I'm working on the Southern Gothic, actually, hence why I'm reading and listening to a lot of Southern Gothic. And in the late 1800s, the largest lynching in U.S. history occurred to a group of Italians in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, nobody knows about this history. Nobody talks about it. It almost started a war. And it's something that's common in Italy for people in Italy to know about, but we don't know about it here in the U.S. And that's what I'm working on. And I'm thinking at NaNoWriMo, I'm going to try to finish the first draft, because I've been slowly working on the first draft. I think in November, I'm really going to focus on that. And so I really want to write that book, and I really want to tell that story. And so that's the next one. And then I also want to play with some magical realism, because I love magical realism.
Yes.
And that's what I read from. And I was at the Scary Stories Around the Pit Fire last night. And I read from the story that I'm working on with that, which is going to be retelling fairy tales and looking at Italian history through these fairy tales, and some magical realism in that too.
Nice.
Beautiful.
So that's
exciting.
Yes.
When I went to Italy, the one thing I looked up was like the most haunted places in Italy. So, like, that's all I wanted to know. There's a lot.
There is, yes.
Yeah.
We Italians are kind of superstitious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and magical realism. There's a great, if you're into magical realism, there's an author that I love, Italo Calvino. He's known for his magical realism, and he's considered one of the greatest modern authors in Italy. And he's got some great pieces of work that he's told that are just superb.
Oh, wow. You know, when I was in Italy, I stayed at a hotel. It was beautiful. It had like the tallest tower that you can like go and have happy hour on. Very tall tower, but it was tall and beautiful in Florence. And the room came with a novel told by the owner of the hotel. And yeah, it was just like a novel set in Florence, and he puts one in every room for when you check in. I thought it was the coolest thing. My husband's like, "This hotel was made for you." I was like, "I know this." Yeah, so excited.
I love it when you find those hotels. When I was in Peru and we were in Cusco, we were staying at a hotel that used to be a monastery. And they turned it into a hotel, and there was just artwork all over the place in the rooms, in the hallways. And Ryan and I just walked around the hallways just looking at the different pieces of art, because they had just this huge art collection. Wow. And it was this really historic place, and we were just in love with the hotel. When we were supposed to go try our hike, and go to Machu Picchu, we almost didn't want to leave the hotel just because it was just such a cool hotel. Yeah. That's so funny. So we are at our hour. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us and letting us talk about WNBA and get new members. So sign up, find your tribe. Let us encourage you to write and, do all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And and as I mentioned, if you're not in the LA area and you're listening, go to WNBA's national website, and you can find a chapter that's near you. And if there isn't one near you, get one started. You can easily find a number of women authors and writers and people in the industry who will come out of the woodwork to join with you.
Right. But if you are in the area, go to WNBA-LA.org and sign up, and we'd be happy to have you at any of our events. So.
And we will have the link in our show's notes, so you guys can check that out too. Yay. And we'll have a link to Ezina's podcast as well, so you can check out Guitar Goddess.
Woo!
Yeah, we got to have that on, because you're on iHeartRadio now, right?
iHeartRadio, you got it.
Yep. So yeah, check that out, and we'll see you guys next week. Next week we're going to have 2 shows. Actually, we're going to have Kelly on to talk about Undiscovered Country, and that's going to be on the 30th, if I've got my calendar straight. I don't know. The wife's not here, so I don't know our social schedule. And then also on the 1st, we're going to have Amy Runyon back on the show, and she's going to be talking about her latest book. So be sure to join us, guys. Awesome. And thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye. Bye.